we live a long and healthy life, we get to the end and we look back and say, who am I? And what did I accomplish? But more importantly, who did I become? Alcoholism, like we've got tons of research showing the negative effects and the people that want to give up on being an alcoholic, there's support groups, and there is nothing for workaholics. Nothing. You need to have your why. You need to know what you want to become. You need to manage your time and be productive. But have boundaries. Outside of work, what are you? Balance is making time for your highest priorities in life.
Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. Thank you so much for being here today. My guest today is Dr. Travis Parry, and he is an expert on balance. No, he's not a gymnast, I don't think, but he has spent the better part of his career helping professionals and couples achieve greater work-life balance. An incredible feat, given the fact that he and his wife have 8 kids. Dr. Parry is a sought-after international speaker, inspirational coach, and an international best-selling author of the book, Achieving Balance, the Make Time Method, to help advisors reach business and personal goals in an overworked world. And his new book, Balanced Growth, is hitting the shelves, real and virtual, as we speak. Dr. Parry has earned a joint PhD in family relations and human development to better understand the balance from a family systems perspective, and has since founded the Make Time Institute, which has helped thousands of financial professionals in all 50 states to grow balanced businesses. He is a sought-after industry speaker and the host of the Balanced Growth Show, a FeedSpot top 25 financial advisor podcast. His greatest accomplishment in life is becoming a husband to his beautiful and talented wife of over 20 years and the father to his 8 amazing children. And that's just incredible, man. Welcome to the show, Travis. Good to have you here, man.
Thanks, Adam, for that intro. Appreciate you letting me be here, man.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure and honor. Honestly, I love the work that you're doing. I love your book. I've read it over the course of a weekend. It was really insightful and really helpful to me. Something I struggle with, something I know many of us struggle with, is that idea of balance, finding that work-life balance. It just seems to be that when we want to achieve a lot in our lives, that just overwhelms, keeps creeping in. So what got you into this work? I'd love to hear the origin story of Dr. Travis Parry.
It's interesting, kind of behind the scenes. I've always wanted to be a public speaker. And I think that annoys people, at least when I was a kid, because it was like, wow, you think so highly of yourself, or you just like to hear yourself talk, or like, no, I like to motivate people and I want to know things. I've always wanted and fascinated by understanding why things work. It's just kind of a natural thing. And for me, humans fascinate me. So I studied psychology in high school and I really had a fun time with that. And with a crazy teacher, it's a different story for another time. But if my high school buddies are listening, you know what I'm talking about. But I decided to actually study sociology in college and do a master's in psychology. Along the way, I own my own business as a financial planner. And there's a lot that goes on in the mind of individuals and clients with their own psychology and decision-making around money. So I learned everything I could that would really help me understand the soft science approach to financial planning. And the idea is that one day I would be a good enough financial advisor that people would maybe want to do business the way that I do it. And so I would be an expert speaker. Well, my father, who I was very close with growing up, I was the oldest son. They had 6 children. My mom and dad had 6 children. And, I was child number 2. My sister, we were really close. She was 13 months older than me. So, we had this tight friendship. But, my dad, I worked with him in the family business. We rode mountain bikes together. He spent a lot of time with us. He coached all of my soccer teams and watched me play in high school. We had some really great connections. And I know some people, they don't have a great relationship with their father. And I don't understand that from a personal experience, but I can empathize or sympathize really with your situation. Because I know so many people have, they've had a rough time. But my dad and I were really close. When I was 26, he died of a heart attack. He was 49.
Oof. Wow.
And it was on our favorite trail that we would ride mountain biking like every Saturday in the summertime. We just go on this trail called Chumash Trail. And one of his best friends with him was an EMT who worked on him for 30 minutes until the helicopter life flight came to take him to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. And it was like a scene out of a movie where family, friends, community, church members, they were all at the hospital waiting for the helicopter to land. And it was, I wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I rushed down from Utah as fast as I could without getting any speeding tickets the next morning to be with the family. And I spoke at his funeral. I wrote the obituary. I was a financial advisor. So here I was helping my mom with kind of the cleanup of everything. And thank goodness Dad had insurance and other things in place. But long story short, I had a life-changing experience because of that. It said, I am not living my life as purposely as I should be. And I need to make some major changes. What if I only live to 49? I'm 43 now. What in the world? Like, I still think I'm 26 in my mind. The body, is trying to tell me otherwise, but
right. That happens around 43, doesn't it?
Right? Jeez. It's like, what are you doing to me? I'm riding my mountain bike. So, my wife and I say my wife and I, because there's no way I'd make these changes on my own by myself in a vacuum. Like, she has been supportive and we've been supporting each other. Made major changes since then with our health, the way we school our children, media that we bring into our home, just on and on about our lifestyle. And I changed my business from being a financial advisor to helping financial advisors who are struggling with not living their purpose, with living their life fully. And I found that as I went to write about this, the thing that I heard from advisors was, well, Travis, purpose is good, but I'm really struggling with time. I don't have time to do all this. And I was trained along the way to be a time manager, time management consultant. And so I started to figure out, well, this is actually an issue with balance. Mm-hmm. They're saying balance. This is where they're struggling with. And so I did a PhD in family relations to try to figure out what are the family systems, what's going on with the family part of life balance that is maybe contributing to stress, to heart health, to the balance equation of these business owners. And I spent a lot of my time focusing on that subject, researching it. And then now, I'm writing several books about it and speaking about balance. And, having 8 children of our own, I have to be balanced man. I have to be an example of not being a workaholic.
Well, yeah, and I want to dig into that part because I have 2 kids, and they're a little older now. So, but I still find that challenge of like, how am I going to balance all the things I want to do? I want to be healthy. I want to do the things I want to enjoy. I want to play music. I want to be engaged. I guess the big question is how do you get balanced? But you've written books about that. So but from the perspective of someone with 8 kids, how does that family dynamic work? I mean, because there has to be a lot of going on there. I know you're homeschooling and all of that. What was it that changed about, when you were 26 that what did you start to change in your own lives that contributed to better balance in your own lives?
Yeah, I say first off, there's no way I'd be able to do this alone. When my wife goes away, which is not as often as she'd probably like by herself to go get some time with sisters or family or other things, and I'm alone with the children, I realize how inept I am at being a dad and a mom. Like, being a dad is hard enough. But being a mom and a dad, to me, I just think I really, really rely on her. And as you mentioned, we homeschool our children. And that was something that kind of was born out of this idea of, well, how do we give our kids the best? What is the best for our family? And I did a year of homeschool. And quite honestly, it wasn't my best experience in my life. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for trying. But it was before the internet, before the dawn of dinosaurs, It was like all we had was books. There were some people we got to, meet up with in some cohorts and things like that. But nowadays, you honestly can school your kids from anywhere in the world. There's really no excuse unless if that's not what you want, and that's fine. I'm not here to say you have to homeschool your kids. But for us, that has worked with our lifestyle, and it allows us to teach the values that we want to in our own home. That happened after Dad died. We made major changes to our diet, our health, and then it just kind of crept into every other aspect of our life as changes in health do, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are addicted to food in some way, shape or form or fashion. It's, it allows for comfort. It allows for a lot of things, but we really looked at that because of my dad's passing and because my wife at 25, I think, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh, wow.
And we're sitting in a bunch of doctor's offices trying to figure out what this is with 75-year-old men and women walking through the door, and we're there with the baby.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, so I'm diagnosing you with rheumatoid arthritis. Any family history of this? We're like, no, where does this come from? What are you talking about? And he's like, well, the test came back negative, but I'm still diagnosing you with this. We're like, okay. And as we left, he's like, by the way, you'll be on medication the rest of your life. I told this to my wife. She said, and all of the medications that I prescribe will not allow you to have children ever again. They will all be born with deformities and, mental retardation and stuff like that. And she was bawling. Number one, coming from a specialist office that's supposed to give you hope. And even though he misdiagnosed B, it was this final, there's no other options in the world. So you better believe she went to work to try to figure out what could we do. And that's a whole other story. But we had 3 children at the time, and we wanted to have a big family. And because we figured out a solution that really changed the dynamic of our family, our health wise, we went on to have 5 other children because of that. No medication. And that's a whole other book. Someday I'll get to it. But the idea here is work together and be on the same page. But we need to make time for these children that we love and that we've really put a lot of time into bringing them to this world. Last thing I'll mention on that too is that, you have 2 children. Other people like to compare I only have 1 or 2. It doesn't matter. In our case, they didn't come all at the same time. Hallelujah. But we've got a span from 20 down to newborn. Yeah. And I will tell you this, our older kids really help out. My wife and I enjoy going on vacations. We enjoy getting out of town because our olders can watch all the kids. A lot of people struggle with that. They got to get grandma or somebody. And we always kind of have built-in babysitters, and they help each other. And with the homeschool mentality, they're there with each other all day. They're really good friends. And I'm not saying that public school kids aren't. I came from a big family. We knocked heads all the time. But I think that allows for great balance and unity at home.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've never thought of it that way, and I appreciate that perspective. The idea that a bigger family can actually help contribute to kind of taking care of itself, and I would think regarding the health piece, and I don't want to step on the balance expert here, so tell me your thoughts. But the idea of being healthy and eating well and taking care of your body, taking care of your seems to be that it would actually increase the energy, which would increase the balance or improve your balance. Am I off base on that, or is that something that you think would be?
No, I think you're right on. And don't get me, we talk about change, but you and I both know change doesn't happen in an instant. It doesn't even happen directionally. Sometimes it's kind of all over the place. And quite honestly, if I look back at some of the answers I've given you, it's kind of been all over the place because that's kind of how my life was. It's like dad died. My wife's parents divorced 2 years later. My wife was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. We had a major financial blow where we almost lost our home. That was in 2007, 2008 when the Great Recession was going on. Like everything was at the same time. And what I know about stress in my understanding of stress and coping and is like you can normally handle like one stressor, like a big stressor at one time. 2, it's getting there. But like 3+, you're overloaded. Yeah. And you burn out. And I think a lot of times workaholics who I've studied and really try to understand is that I say we because I was one. And that became my addiction. My addiction was, well, if I can't handle anything, I'm just going to go to work and figure all this stuff out. And I'm going to be da-da-da-da-da. And I started working a lot. But that wasn't the intention. The intention was I wanted to work on my health. I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to have it all. But because the financial piece was such a problem during that time, especially Great Recession, and there was so much stress there, it just about buried me. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
So how did you that workaholism piece kind of it resonates with me because I mean I have an ism, alcoholism. Yeah. I feel like I borderline on that workaholism too. I mean I find myself trying to suppress or ignore other major problems by going to work and just trying to achieve there.
Yes.
Is that something that I mean is that how is that affecting us in terms of and how do we escape that? Is there an AA meeting for workaholics?
Dude, so here's the funny, not so funny, is alcoholism. Like we got tons of research showing the negative effects and, the people that want to give up on being an alcoholic, there's support groups and there is nothing for workaholics. Nothing. But what was crazy is after my dad dies, like I'm the guy that writes his obituary. And I had this aha moment. It was a very spiritual moment where I was like, will people show up to my funeral? Will they say this stuff about me? And, it was kind of shallow at first. Like, do I have this kind of impact? My dad was very connected and people loved him. And I was like, I don't know. But then 2 is like, well, quit worrying about that. Right now, focus on your health. Try to be better. So I went to the doctor and got all tested. He's like, your heart's fine. I'm like, but so was my dad. He was on his mountain bike. He wasn't on the couch, like watching football. And no offense, like football's fine, but the real football, soccer is even better. Anyway, so the reality is like, he was not like a couch potato, very, very active, cycling 100 miles a week. And he died what they call a widowmaker, where he had one artery in his heart that was 90% clogged. And the other arteries were 20 to 25% ish, right? Which is kind of standard American normal for his age. And so the very first sign of this disease that he had was heart attack. And so that made me really scared. I was actually pretty fearful. Speaking of flow over fear, I was pretty fearful, and fear directed a lot of my actions after dad died. So I was like, I'm going to get back healthy because I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And that became my mentality until something shifted and it was like, but what are you living for? What are you trying to become? Who are you trying to become? And that over time, and then all the challenges my wife and I had kind of all at the same time that blew up on us, it seemed like in a year or 2, really pushed us to dig deep. We did a lot of marriage work. We did a lot of interpersonal work and professional work. But then it was like the business part. How does that all fit in? Well, virtually no one I know has their profession written on their tombstone. Right. I don't know a soul. I've never been to a cemetery. It's like plumber, electrician, public speaker. Like, okay. And if maybe the guy, Sorry, I was getting a bad dad joke. Maybe John Crapper has that on his tombstone, Adam.
That's true. It's a success story of coming up in conversation with the dad joke. When
there's a plumbing. Actually, I do have a dad joke for you, which you get to later. But and I say that because John Crapper invented the toilet and everything, and my dad was a plumber, so it's kind of funny.
Is that true? Really?
Yeah.
John, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's why they call it the John.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's incredible.
And I got to go to the Crapper. It's John. I mean, here we are talking. I mean, I thought this was a clean show, buddy, but I guess
it's not anymore. We're going to earn that E. We're going to earn that little E on it.
Oh shoot.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, plumbing is a dirty job. Somebody's got to do it.
Got to do it. You crack me up, man.
The best dad jokes are the ones that just come off
it's true.
Off the cuff. But I will tell you, like, nothing got me motivated than just be like, I don't want to be, I want to be 50. So I turned my motivation from, I don't want to die. I was freaked. I'm like, what's my motivation to live? Yeah. Once I changed all that, I started to figure out, well, what's my purpose? And I developed a system that really motivated me at the time and has motivated, I think, hundreds, even thousands of people have heard me speak. And that is to create your own mini obituary. Not this like how I died and I did this, but no, really focus on who you became at the end of your life. Psychologists and human developmentalists will say there's a stage in our life. At the end of our life, we live a long and healthy life. We get to the end and we look back and say, well, who am I? And what did I accomplish? But more importantly, who did I become? And did I live my values? And those of us who believe in God, like, we're going to meet our maker and we're going to have to answer for the stewardship of time that is this mortal probation. And that's going to be the ultimate. So I kind of went from what are other people going to think of me to what will God ultimately think of me? And obviously he loves me and that's truth, but I don't want to disappoint. I want to be who I'm supposed to be in this life. And I believe every person in this world has a mission, whether they accomplish that or not, but has a mission to be here. And that's kind of the sentiment that I really wanted to drive. And I believe in good marketing is you give people what they need, but you figure out what they want. And what people kept asking me and telling me is like, well, I want time. I want productivity. I want better balance. So I figured out, well, what's balance really? In my definition of balance is not trying to do everything at the same time. That's where I was going wrong, dude. I was like, I want to do it all. And I'm going to show everybody that I'm just going to outsmart them. Some people are like, they're harder workers. That's fine. Right. Like, go be a hard worker. I feel like I'm pretty dang smart. So I'm just going to outsmart everybody and I'm going to be more productive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But at first I was trying to do it all. I was like, oh, this isn't working. So I became a productive workaholic. The productive workaholic doesn't have boundaries. He doesn't know when to stop.
Sounds like a functional alcoholic, by the way.
That's exactly like there's some symbolism here. And I honestly, like, I do believe that's very, very similar because a workaholic, like, they work more when they're stressed. They don't work less. Yeah. They tend to have this passion that drives them to work. And because everything else in their life is falling apart, they actually work more because they get that hit. It's the dopamine hit of, well, you did a great job. I appreciate you as, helping me out as an advisor, a client, of yours that loves you and gives a testimonial, whatever it is. Yeah. That's the hit. That's the drug, buddy. That's it. And so the productive workaholics don't know how to create boundaries, but they're really productive. And you probably know somebody like this, like they're always doing something and they get stuff done, but they're still working long hours. They're sleeping under their desk. They're coming in at 4 and leaving at 9. It's a sad life. There is no balance. Now, if I was a single dude and I had nothing else in life going on, I can see how people become workaholics, but I've seen this in almost any industry. legal. Oh, attorneys are bad. I've seen in academia. I was there. Academia is just as bad as anything else. They pretend to have this awesome lifestyle, but they are stressed and they are trying to get tenure, and it is hard. As a financial advisor, but it's crazy. Here's some stats. Most entrepreneurs are working 72 hours a week on average. 72 hours a week. But I mean, that sounds crazy. Like, how do we do that? Well, but we take our phone home. We have our email. We text everybody. We've got
Many of us
social
are working
media.
from home. I mean, geez,
a lot of us are working from home. And during COVID, I was starting to interview people about this. It became even worse. People that had great balance before didn't have any boundaries. And I'm like, oh, it's because you don't have boundaries.
Yeah. That's so crazy to me. But it's totally understandable. I mean, the world shifts, the world goes into this, just otherworldly thing that we never expected. And fear kind of engulfs us. And so what do? We lean into work. We have the opportunity to. We're working at home. Our desk is right next to the kitchen table. Maybe it is the kitchen table.
Maybe it is the kitchen table.
And so, we're working like 100% of the time. I felt I was guilty of that, looking outside and like not turning it off until, I heard like dinner was made from the other room. And even then it was occasionally like just a few more minutes, it's weird when it like hits you out of nowhere on that front. I'm intrigued by the fear part, because you mentioned the fear part, and there's a part in your book that I have quoted, and I'm sorry, it's towards the end, so I hope I'm not spoiling anything.
No, you're good, dude.
But this was from your first book, by the way, not the second book, Achieving Balance. So you see, fear can be helpful. It warns us in making bad decisions. It keeps us from making bad decisions, staying in an abusive relationship, or getting hit by a car, etc. The reality is, we learn from these fears. We learn these fears from our parents, our past relationships, and life experiences we don't want to repeat again. For fear prevents us from getting hurt. That is a good thing. But fear and anxiety, which keeps us from taking action, but the fear and anxiety which keeps us from taking action toward our goals is different from the general fear, which keeps us protected. I love that part, because it just speaks to this idea that fear is a feeling we're going to feel. And you mentioned the fear earlier, and that you were afraid, and it sounded like even then it drove you to action, which is kind of what you get to here. I was wondering if you could kind of maybe touch on that and maybe transition into how that can fuel us into finding that balanced life. Hey everyone, I interrupt this program to introduce you to a powerful tool that will help you gain clarity on your vision and accelerate your growth and achievement. If you're listening to this show, it is likely that you have an exciting vision for your life. But the problem is that we often get caught up in the day-to-day. We get distracted. We face uncertainty, overwhelm, and self-doubt. And as a result, the gap between where you are and where you want to be seems insurmountable. And that's why I created a framework for how you can turn your vision into strategic, disciplined action that will accelerate your results in the next 90 days. I call it the Vision Reflection Retreat. It is a 2-day solo excursion designed to reignite passion and adventure into your busy life and realign your focus toward your why. This is the very same framework that I use every 90 days to reflect on my own life and my vision and set my goals for the next quarter. And it has been a game changer. And the good news is that I'm giving away this Vision Reflection Retreat guidebook for free when you sign up for my newsletter. Simply go to flowoverfear.com/retreat and download your free guide and enjoy the journey.
Fear can be a great motivator. Some people are they're afraid to fall off a cliff, so they're going to stay as far away from the edge. And it's a crazy thing. Like when you drive a car, like people talk about this all the time with me. Like, you ever have that thought? Like, I'll just drive off the edge and see what happens. You know, it's like, no, don't do that. Like, but like it's like our arms, like we won't let us do that unless maybe we're on drugs or something. But like we know we're not going to do that. But the mind plays tricks on us. And it can keep us from getting the things that we want. But oftentimes fear can be a very good short-term motivator. If we look at parenting styles, parents that parent out of fear all the time, eventually the kid like just learns not to be afraid of it. The fear doesn't work anymore. You better
That's
do
true.
this or you're not going to get that. It's like, oh my goodness. It's constant taking away, constant. And then we wonder why our kids grow up and they don't want to accomplish things. Well, unless somebody lights a fire under them. It's because this is how we've trained them. So I do believe that a lot of fears that we've learned in life come from our family of origin, come from maybe our siblings beating us up or being bullied at school. Like these early on experiences as we are developing our mind, which our brain doesn't fully develop till like 25 anyway. So, I mean, not even halfway past that point, like in life. So we're constantly having people try to motivate us with fear. Look at advertising. A lot of times it's FOMO, like don't miss out on this. And we're going to come into, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but we're coming into, Thanksgiving, and the day after Thanksgiving is the biggest FOMO day of the year.
That's right.
Don't
it's like, miss these deals.
Don't miss it. They wait in line for hours to get that TV or that trampoline. I've only done it once, Adam. I've done it once.
You've gone into the Walmart? Really?
I went into, actually wasn't Walmart. I hate Walmart, but I went into like the sporting goods store, and it was like 5 a.m. and the line was already like an hour and a half long. And I was trying to get a trampoline for the children. I'm trying to save the children.
It's the children.
It's for
all
the children.
It's
a starving, PhD student saying, well, an hour and a half is still worth $200. I'm going to go there now.
That's true.
So anyway, but it can be a great motivator. It just doesn't usually last long enough to keep us motivated, and it tends to dull our responses. So what happens is we still keep those fears, but we keep them subconsciously. And we hold on to them. And that fear of missing out on something may be really triggered because your parents, when you were a kid, took away a responsibility, an opportunity, a friendship. You have to eat all your food, or you can't have dessert, right? Like there's things that are kind of triggered subconsciously, and we tend to grow these fears. They get planted and they grow as fear of failure or fear of success. Now there's different types of fears, but those are like the two big branches in this fear tree that I describe in the book. And the problem is that when you go to make a business decision and you've been motivated by fear most of your life, then that subconscious fear, even though you could do all the T-charts and you could do the analysis and all of it, a lot of times what you're doing is you're just trying to come up with data to justify making a decision based on your subconscious fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see people do this all the time, and it keeps them stuck in addiction, buddy. It keeps them stuck as a workaholic. Why?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Because they're afraid. They're afraid that if they do anything different, or they're afraid that they can't do anything different because they're afraid to fail, so they won't try. Or they're afraid that they'll actually be successful and then something new will happen, and then they'll have to figure out how this new life is, and people don't like change. So we usually have a fear of failure or fear of success or a mixture of both. But I've found that every time I take people through this process to kind of uncover where their fears are, it's a learned behavior. It's subconscious, and they can get through it. They can get past it, but it's just uncovering it first.
It's interesting. And you answered my question, my next question, because as you were talking through that, I was putting the puzzle pieces together of how that fear, that subconscious fear, was driving more towards workaholism. But it seemed like that when we're pushing in that workaholism, or when we're acting in that, workaholism.
Yes,
is that the word?
Sure.
When we do that, I mean, we're not, if we're not willing to change, or we're doing that to avoid change, we're just spinning wheels. We're not even making progress at that point. So what kind of tools, to someone who may be just becoming self-aware of this idea that they're just not balanced, that maybe they're having that struggle, maybe they're having that wake up moment of like, man, I need to get my stuff together. and find this balance for the sake of my family, for the sake of my children or my career, what are like the first steps?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I'd say the first steps is real deep inner work. What do you want to become? We talked about values earlier. Like, identify your values. I have a exercise in the book, Achieving Balance, called the mini obituary worksheet. And really, there's 10 areas of life. You can slice and dice them however you want, but there's 10. And, at least in my book. And, you're going to have to figure out, who do you want to become in these different areas of life? And I would challenge you to take some time and write it out. Like, I want to become this person at work, this person at home, this person with my health. And then find the characteristics that describe you, or attributes that describe you. And those are your values. Is it trustworthy? Is it successful? Whatever it is, it describes you. So that somebody could literally stand up like they did at my dad's funeral. And I had a brother who stood up and just read all my dad's attributes. That was his talk.
Wow.
And, you could stand up and just read those out loud.
Yeah.
And then the work becomes, well, how do I utilize my time so that I can become in each of these areas? So this is where the rubber meets the road, is do a time audit. Find, where are you spending all of your time? Most people don't do this. I want to change my time, but I just want to tip, a trick, a hack. They don't want to do the inner work that's required. So they don't do it. Why? Because they're afraid. It's the fear, right? And then we'll get to this in a second. And so find out where you're spending the time, and then make a conscious decision. I made a conscious decision. I want to work 25 hours a week, max. Bro, this is how I do it. I spend 25 hours a week at work so that I can be with my family. We can go on trips. I do daddy dates with each of my kids, like every day. I read books to them. I tell them stories at night. My family time is huge. Like, I put a lot of family time on my calendar on purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer a victim of fear. Fear does not control me. My proactive calendar that I've set for myself is how I'm going to live my life. Even times where I'm stressed out. And quite honestly, yesterday I was stressed. I had some things going on in my life that I couldn't deal with. I went home halfway through the day. Like, no, I'm checking out. Why? Because if I stick around at work all day, what am I going to get done? What quality of work is going to happen? How will that impact other people who I want them to be like, okay, balance man, he knows what he's doing. But I'm not going to stick around and work on something that I don't have any interest in right now when I could be going home. So I went home and took my girl out to my 7-year-old daughter to go geocaching.
I love it.
And that was like, she'll be filled up for days. She'll say she told me, thank you this morning. Dad, that was so great. We got potato chips and we went out looking for tiny little messages in bottles hidden in trees and under rocks all over our town. It's not about that. It's about, she got to sit in the front seat with Dad and she was special.
Yeah. And the kids, they see, there's so much joy in the small things that, in those kinds of things, it can bring you joy. Even just like something like potato chips. I went and bought potato chips with Dad. Those things are amazing. And this is, you kind of glossed over it, but you said you work 25 hours a week. Yeah. That's your work week. And you accomplished a lot. You're a speaker, you're a coach, you're helping people find this balance. So you're not just talking about it, you're doing it. And I think that's powerful, because one of the things that I think when we get to that point of like achievement, when we're starting to achieve a lot of things start coming in, and we have to be deliberate about finding those boundaries, right? That's right. So are you finding that you're saying no to a lot of things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No. Yes.
No, you're not. Yes.
Affirmative.
Are you not saying no to a lot of things? No.
I am absolutely not saying yes to everything. I'll tell you this, Adam, you nailed it. Like, boundaries.
Yeah.
I realize I think I have a little bit of ADD, and I think business owners, we all do, but I was alluding to earlier, balance is not equilibrium. Balance is making time for your highest priorities in life. I'm not the priority Nazi. I'm not going to go around and slap your hand if, oh, you didn't do priorities, right? I'm not the Dave Ramsey of priorities, okay? But what I am is hopefully an example. I believe inspire, not require. We believe that for our children. And so if I'm not doing a good job, I need to change because my children will see me. And, if I mess up as a dad, which I do at least once a day, I apologize. I say I'm sorry. And I try to work harder, not because, of anything other than I want to show my children that I am working and don't just do it because dad says to. Like, inspire your children. So that's been my mantra as balance man, is to be an inspiration. And hopefully I am. Because most of the stuff I put on social media, I wish I had cool dad jokes like you that I could, and maybe I'll get on that bandwagon. But I think, which I love, dude, like, you're so stinking funny. I can't even tell you. It's so fun to watch your stupid Facebook posts show up. I'm like, oh, there's another dumb dad joke.
Well, isn't it strange?
So funny. So funny.
Yeah, but isn't it strange that that's what I'm prioritizing? You're working 25 hours a week, and I'm prioritizing, like, got to get my dad joke out today.
You got to craft a good dad joke. I love it. That's your thing. But you know what? What we got to do is now utilize the time to become that person by prioritizing what matters the most. But Travis, I have to work. That provides for my family. Yes, we all have to work. And I'm not saying that you should only work 25 hours, but do you have to work 72 or 90? Or I had a client who was working 120. How do you even survive working 120 hours a week? That is diagnosable. Anything over 55 is diagnosable.
We have 168 hours in a week total. I mean, you have to sleep in there.
You got to sleep. You got to eat. Yeah. I don't know how you do everything else. But, I think I was mentioning this earlier on, is that this idea that, at least with this addiction, there is no AA for workaholic. And maybe I'm wrong, but I have not found anything similar because we wear it like a badge of honor. Our society is all about be everything you want to be, unless that's a dad or a mom. Don't do that. But be an astronaut. Go to the moon. But don't spend time with your kid. Like, that's so overrated when you can be on your phone all day long checking Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not perfect at this, but our priorities as a society are screwed up. They're screwed up. Where's the support for dads who, quite honestly, 5 times more than the average American entrepreneurs, business owners are killing themselves. Suicide rates are 5 times more than any other individual in society.
Wow.
Like, I get it. There's lots of problems in our society. There's lots of them. But there is virtually no help for workaholism. I didn't want to write a book, though, about workaholism. I wanted to focus on the opposite. What's the good side? And so my wife came up with the title. She's like, Achieving Balance. That's it. That's your title. I'm like, you're right. That's what it is. It is about achieving balance. And as I wrote this, I realized that, you need to have your why. You need to know what you want to become. You need to manage your time and be productive, but have boundaries outside of work. What are you? Are you just a couch potato being reactive to everything that's happening? Or do you have hobbies? Do you have friends? Do you spend time with your children, your wife? Do you go to church? Do you serve in the community? There's other things. And if you fill your time outside of work with those things, those are your boundaries.
Yeah. And what I love about that first book, and I want to kind of transition into your second book as we go in a second, but what I love about this book, your first book here, is it is like a guidebook. I mean, it is a step-by-step path to balance and prioritization and, living that life of balance. It is really well written. And I mean, for somebody who has a PhD, who's worked on the science of it, putting it in a simple format that everybody can work through, writing that mini obituary, and really building out your values and letting that drive your priorities. It's a great read,
Thanks,
and a really, just a great exercise everybody should participate in. So get that book, and then order the next book that he's got, which is Balanced Growth. And I want you to talk about that. Can you share a little bit about what that one's going to be about and how it's different?
I'll transition, because at the end of achieving balance, I felt like I had to kind of cut it off, kind of pinch it off. I'm like, okay, this is it. This is done. But I wanted to continue. And I left, the reader with a whole chapter on fear. And I try to give a little bit of flavor of, okay, you have your time, you have your boundaries, but you could get to the top of what I call the workaholic trap and still be stuck. As what I refer to as a personal developer, someone who's constantly, trying to improve oneself by oneself instead of developing with your spouse. Now, I'm going to talk to those, married people out there. And of course, if you're not married, I still have a solution for you, but, and it's not just get married, but it is very much find an accountability partner. But if you are married, your spouse is not just someone that, hi, bye, see ya. You should be creating a relationship with that person. You should have goals, health goals, financial goals, relationship goals, parenting goals. Not because it's a hashtag couple goals or, on social, but because it's actually good science. You mentioned the science. This is what I studied.
Right.
I found that couples that actually do this on a regular basis have better psychological health, have better relational satisfaction, marital satisfaction, and have better financial stability. It's everything that everybody wants. So why are we not doing it? We don't know how. Most people tell me, I don't know how to set goals with my spouse. What do we do? Two things. Support your spouse in what they're doing, then ask for support back. And then create a shared goal, something that you both agree on. There's this phenomena called gray divorce. It happens after all the children are gone. And, it's a higher likelihood that, people look at each other and go, well, who the heck are you? I don't know. Because their shared goal, their one goal was parenting. Raise the children, get them gone. And now they look at each other and like, do I want to spend the rest of the life with you? And do you want... So it becomes kind of a sticky situation. So not only will this help your marriage, but it will help you to stay out of the workaholic trap. It'll help you to keep that balance. So book 2 is going to start where I left off with fear. It's going to talk about faith. Faith is a principle of action. Faith is what destroys fear, not hope. Hope is good. Hope is at least have hope. You can always hope for a better day, right? If you don't have faith and you're not moving towards something, then at least hold on to it. Don't let go. Don't ever give up on a good thing. Okay.
Yeah.
But faith is actually moving forward. I just got off a phone call with a guy who knows he needs to do something. I was coaching him on this. I'm like, okay, so maybe you can't do the big thing right now, but what's the little thing? Like, what's the very next step? And this is the beauty behind Atomic Habits book. I love that book. I think, I wholeheartedly endorse it, as long as you, don't just change habits change them because of your values, right? Make sure that's in place. So if I have all that in place, then just take a step.
Yeah.
God's not going to come down and push you. He's going to say, hey, I'm going to help you, but you got to move. So anyway.
That's such a good, that's such a good point to wrap on, because that idea of that very next step. And I love that you're continuing on this book to go from the fear standpoint to the faith standpoint, because that's going to be such a powerful way. We start with faith to build on the actions that are going to take us to the next level. And that next level starts with just that small step. Exactly. I like to talk about that 5% step, just the thing that's going to get you just 5% closer to goal. Stack those 5% and you'll eventually reach the mountaintop. Yep.
And then let me wrap this real quick and then I'll let you go. But the growth part of this is, so many clients were like, hey, I got to balance. I'm balanced now, but now I want to grow my business. And I found a lot of my clients were willing to give up balance for a while to grow their business. It's like, oh my gosh. So I'm creating workaholics who then jump back into the workaholic trap. They don't slide back into it. They jump back into it. So that the rest, balanced growth is really how do you grow and scale a business? How do you 10x your business as a dad and also keep your balance? And this is where we're going to talk more about the importance of your spouse and how you work together so that there can be that accountability. You may not be able to go to a Workaholics Anonymous, but you have your spouse to help you make sure you don't become a workaholic for the sake of, well, I've got to grow the business. Because we've doubled and tripled, and I've helped other businesses do the same while decreasing the amount of time they spend at work. It is an absolute lie that you have to spend more time to grow and scale.
Man, yeah, I love that idea. And yeah, the 40-hour work week is a prehistoric product of our industrial age.
Amen.
So I'm so glad you're preaching that, and I would love to dig in more into a lot of this stuff and take another hour with you, because there's so many directions we can go, and you're inspiring a lot of people to change into the right habits to get that balance that they need, and work less and not feel guilty about it and spend more time with their families. What better purpose can a person have in life? So thank you for doing that work,
Thanks,
Travis. It's amazing. And if anybody out there wants to check out this new book or find Travis, you can go to the balancedgrowthbook.com to find out about the new book. There's a neat video on there. You can order it there and get a nice little bonus gift that Travis is offering. And check out the maketimeinstitute.com and balanceddads.com to find out more about Travis. And Travis, where else can people find you? And how do you want them to get in touch?
Yeah, if they go to balanceddads.com or maketimeinstitute.com, they'll see how they can connect with me on social. They'll see my speaking website. I do have a podcast that you have been a guest on, or you are a guest on, that we are yet to throw that out to the world. But it is coming. We've recorded it, and it's going to be awesome. But yeah, they can follow me there. And I love to do challenges and events. So pay attention to that side if you're like, hey, what else can we do? But yeah, my book, Balanced Growth, has already pre-sold number one on Amazon, and we're going to release that in January. So look for that very, very soon. And what a great thing to be going and learning about right now at the turn, from 2023 to 2024, trying to make new goals for the business and wanting, it's the health, it's the finance, it's all the areas everybody wants. It's a great time to be jumping in on this.
That's so good. And who better to teach it than you, Dr. Travis Parry? Thank you so much. I've just been really grateful and blessed to know you for these past few months since we've gone through this. So thank you for taking the time. And before I let you go, I got to ask though, you're a dad of 8 kids. So your dad joke game must be awesome. And I got to hear, what is your favorite dad joke?
Like I said earlier, my favorite dad joke is the one that just kind of flies off the cuff because you try to make it so embarrassingly funny and so personal for that person. And I love being able to have something that my kids just cringe. I just love the cringe face. Don't you just die for the cringe face?
It's energy. It's the energy we get as dads. Yes, right.
So my wife the other day was like, I've told her this many times. I'm like, honey, the secret is that you just keep buying in on it, and you follow it. And she's like, from now on, I'm not going to say, Trav. I'm like, you are. You've done it for 20 years, but I love that. It's just the energy. I'm like a dog, good energy, bad attention. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to love you.
Right.
So that's the best dad joke. But I will tell you this. This is my plumbing one. Okay.
Okay.
So, growing up, my dad's business, he and my grandfather, his dad started a plumbing business, and they wanted to be entrepreneurs. And my dad thought it was a college gig, but it ended up being a lifetime career. And, they told me when I started working there, I was 13, and, I'd gone to work with my dad. He'd actually take me to work on Saturdays if he took a Saturday a month and worked if there were jobs. So I'd go with him. He would take us to work all the time, and I'd be the guy holding the flashlight and doing all the things. But when I was 13, they officially hired me, and they started paying me $3 an hour, which was just amazing, cash under the table. And as I'm digging ditches, they're telling me, okay, this is what you need to know. They said, all you need to know as a plumber, just a couple of basic things. Number one, Water runs downhill. Okay, check. Payday is on Fridays. Check. Never bite your fingernails. Those are the 3 rules. Yeah. And honestly, I'm just like, yeah, the stuff that I've seen as a plumber, yeah, you don't ever bite your fingernails as a plumber. Definitely it's a crappy job. Somebody has to do it, as I mentioned. And what I am grateful for, though, I am grateful, and this is kind of on the back end. I'm grateful that there are guys out there doing crappy jobs, because guys like us who have the plush, seated office jobs, sometimes I wish I was out there digging ditches again. Sometimes I wish I was climbing on people's roofs and feeling accomplished when I've, put in a kitchen sink or something. And I'm grateful I don't have to call a plumber and I can do all that. And I have that trade. But man, do we need dirty jobs. So don't bite your fingernails, Adam.
I won't bite my fingernails. And thanks for that joke. Plumbing jokes always crack me up. I appreciate that.
Touche, brother. Yeah. Touche. That's way better.
Dr. Travis Parry, everybody. Thanks, you so much for being here. And everybody else out there, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today on Flow Over Fear. If you are liking this show, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be first to know when I drop a new episode, including interviews or trainings or dad jokes. That's right, dad jokes. Add a little levity to your life. And if you liked this episode in particular, and you think somebody can get something from it, please share it with a friend. And that way we'll spread the message together. Thanks again for joining me today. See you next time.